The Suez Canal is an artificial waterway in Egypt. It connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea.
Its main importance is that ships traveling between Europe and Asia no longer have to sail around Africa via the Cape of Good Hope.
The modern canal is approximately 193.3 km. It has a maximum water depth of about 24 meters. Its surface width is approximately 313 meters.
A ship usually takes around 12 to 16 hours to pass through the canal. Where did the idea of the canal come from? The idea is older than the modern Suez Canal.
According to the official history of the Suez Canal Authority, Senusret III, a pharaoh of Egypt's 12th dynasty, was among the
earliest rulers to pursue the idea of connecting the two seas. However, the ancient waterways mainly used the Nile River and its branches, and were different from the modern canal.
In later periods, there were also several attempts to create and restore a waterway between the Nile and the Red Sea. For example, around Sixo II attempted to reopen the ancient waterway.
Later, the waterway was rebuilt several times. In 641 AD, during the period of Amr ibn al-As, the route was restored and became usable again. For a period, it was known as the Canal of the Commander of the Faithful. However, in 760 AD, the Abbasid Caliph Abu Ja'far al-Mansur ordered the canal to be blocked,
and the waterway remained out of use for a very long period. How was the modern Suez Canal built? The story of the modern Suez Canal began in the 19th century.
In 1854, a concession to construct the canal was granted to Ferdinand de Lesseps. Then, the Universal Company of the Suez Maritime Canal was established.
Finally, construction of the canal officially began on April 25, 1859. The construction of the canal took approximately 10 years.
During the project, around 74 million cubic meters of soil were excavated and moved, and the total cost of the project was estimated at approximately 433 million francs.
On November 17, 1869, the Suez Canal was officially opened. The opening ceremony was extremely grand, with around 6,000 guests in attendance.
Among the famous guests of Suez Canal were Eugénie, Empress of France, the Emperor of Austria, and other political and royal figures.
Many ships entered the canal during the ceremony, making the event one of the largest international celebrations of the 19th century.
How large was the Suez Canal originally? The canal was very different from the modern Suez Canal when it first opened.
In 1869, the Suez Canal opened. It spanned a length of 164 kilometers. With a channel depth of up to 8 meters, it allowed a 22.5-foot draft.
In the early years, ships were only allowed to pass through the canal during the daytime. Night navigation was introduced in 1887. Why did Britain become interested in the Suez Canal? The Suez Canal quickly became one of the most important trade routes in the world. The reason was simple. Europe to Mediterranean, Suez Canal to Red Sea, Indian Ocean to Asia. The canal became especially important to Britain because it had a vast empire in India. In 1875, British Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli purchased the shares owned by Khedive Ismail, making Britain a major shareholder in the Suez Canal Company.
Nationalization of the canal by Jamal Abdel Nasser.
One of the most important events in the history of the Suez Canal took place on July 26, 1956.
Egyptian President Jamal Abdel Nasser announced that the Suez Canal Company would be nationalized.
The decision caused strong anger in Britain and France, as both countries had important economic and political interests in the Suez Canal. The situation soon developed into one of the major political crises of the 20th century.
The Suez Crisis of 1956. After the nationalization of the canal, Britain, France, and Israel launched a military operation against Egypt.
The conflict became known as the Suez Crisis, or the Suez War of 1956. However, international pressure, particularly from the United States, the Soviet Union, and the United Nations, prevented the invasion from developing as the attackers had expected. Eventually, the invading forces withdrew, and control of the Suez Canal remained in Egyptian hands.
The Six-Day War and the closure of the canal. In 1967, the war between Israel and the Arab countries led to the closure of the Suez Canal.
Many ships became trapped in the canal.
Unlike some previous short-term closures, this closure lasted for a very long time.
The Suez Canal remained closed for approximately 8 years. According to the Suez Canal Authority, this period following the 1967 war was the longest closure in
the Suez Canal's history. The reopening in 1975. After the canal was cleared, sunken ships and other obstacles were removed.
The Suez Canal was reopened to international shipping in June 1975.
Since then, Egypt has carried out extensive projects to widen, deepen, and develop the canal.